Welcome to this week's edition of Good Books Radio. I'm Dr. W.F. Strong. I'm your host. Good Books Radio is brought to you by audiobooks.com, where your first book is free. I love audiobooks.com. I use it myself. I pay a monthly fee of $12, and I get a book a month. So that's a good deal because a lot of books cost $25, and I get it for $12. I listen to it in the car. I listen to it on my way to work. I listen to it at the gym. It moves seamlessly from device to device and always picks up where I left off. So I encourage you to try it. Audiobooks.com. Your first book is free. Dr. Jan Pohl is our guest today on Good Books Radio. His book is Never Turn Your Back on an Angus Cow. You may have seen him. He is the star of Nat Geo's hit TV series, The Incredible Dr. Pohl. There's a lot of praise for this from Ken Foster. He says the story of Dr. Pohl in his old-school veterinary practice is as fascinating on the page as it is on TV. The Yahoo TV says Dr. Pohl really is incredible. His hard work, his dedication, and passion for his career comes through the TV, leaving viewers wanting more of the friendly veterinarian. I think you'll enjoy his series on TV. I think you'll love his book, Never Turn Your Back on an Angus Cow. We're going to talk to him in just a minute. But the new series begins this week, and he has 10 episodes. So I encourage you to watch it, and I encourage you to pick up his book. You're going to find him delightful. Let me begin with this. I was curious as to how did National Geographic find you?
That is all because my son's fault. Charles, our son, ever since he was 3 years old, wanted to become a movie producer. I think somewhere or other we have videotapes, on the old-fashioned videotapes that Diane took in the backyard with him and his buddies playing cops and robbers. But anyway, he went to film school in Miami and went to L.A., and they thought when he's in L.A. that, he could just start making movies. Well, that didn't happen, of course, so after 8 years in L.A., he came back to us. He says, Mom, Dad, let's make a reality show about you. And I thought, why me? I'm an old guy. I do it my way, which I know through the years I found works the best for me. And, we were, like I said, it's what I do every day. So he says, well, you'd be surprised. So he ended up with his 2 friends and a filmer that they made, they had 27 hours of taping, made a 4-minute DVD, and then one of his friends took it along the networks, and Nat Geo Wild was the one that says, yeah, maybe something comes out of it. So then they came with a crew of 10 and made 4 episodes as a pilot. And we had to go to Los Angeles to meet the Television Critics Association, and here I was on stage with 3 other guys that had new shows on Nat Geo Wild, and I thought, what am I doing here? Those are all good-looking young guys. I'm just an old guy here. Surprise, surprise, they're gone, I'm here. The only one that is still having special is Boone Smith, who does the big cat specials on Nat Geo Wild. And he's a very nice guy. We just met him a little while ago again. And, so that show took off like a wildfire because it is a show that brings the farm back into the American living room. And I think people appreciate that and like it. And because there's nothing scripted in this show, not one word.
Not one thing.
Not one thing. If there's anything, they'll say, you got to tell Charles that he's got to clean up this. So they said, okay, Charles, walk in the room. Diane, start talking. And that's how we ad-lib everything. And sometimes they say, somebody walk in the background. Can you do it again? But most of the time they say, yep, one take will do. And that's how people realize that this is real.
Well, authenticity is worth a lot. People get upset when they think that something's, the reality TV is scripted. They don't like that.
And this is what I was told. I didn't know that either. I liked some of those shows. My goodness, I liked story tours. I like to find old things in these things, too. Then they tell me that they put things in the storage units that the people know exactly what's in there. Well, that was the last time I watched it. But no, this show is real, and I've said many times, you better get it done the first take, because I'm not putting that calf back in the cow to pull it out again for you. One time is good enough.
Well, do the cows get troubled by all the cameras?
Sometimes they do. For me, the animals still come first. I'm still first and foremost a veterinarian, and I want to help the animal.
Yes.
And sometimes you have to get the animal in a chute, as you well know, and the filmer is standing there, and the cow sees him and says, hey, that guy is too close. So I just yell over everybody else and point at the cameraman that's there, says, hey, you're too close, move. And
So
they always work with me. They always work with me. Of course, those things are always edited out because they're getting between 120 and 180 hours of taping a week, and they use 40 minutes.
My, wow.
Yes. You're in communications,
yes.
But that's what it is. I pity the poor editors that have to look at my face all the time.
But do you get tired of that much filming going on around you? Do you feel
Not really.
Not really?
Not really, because first of all, most of the people have been there already for all these 5 years. And so they're already like family.
Yeah.
They film it for about 4 weeks. Then many times we have 3 weeks off, so I can catch up a little bit of the work that they didn't get done. And they come back, and it's like, hey, you're back again, and everybody gets a good hug, and we go back to work.
Do you deal with small animals?
We do it. I do everything in the clinic. We have veterinarians that go out on the road, and we have veterinarians that stay in the clinic. And if there's anything exotic, then most of the time they're asking for me, because I'll take any animal.
Oh, anything? Pythons?
Anything. Yes. Ask Diane. One time the guy brought in a milk snake, and the veterinarian and I, they were looking at it. She says to me, he says, $20 to walk into the office. And he says, you're on. Big mistake. I'll never do that again. I thought I was going to get a divorce, and I didn't want that.
What is it? I love the title of your book, Never Turn Your Back on an Angus Cow. And given that most people in America now have no direct familiarity with cattle, what do people generally not know about cows that you think they ought to know?
Cows are just like any other animal. They're unpredictable. And if you work with Angus cows, you know darn well that you have to know where they are, otherwise somebody's going to get hurt. And I've learned many, many years ago that, you at least keep half an eye on a cow, because most animals on the farm can outrun people in a very short distance.
Yes.
And so, yes, if an animal's body language tells me, you're too close, I don't like you, I'll go over the fence and come from the other side.
Do you have any idea, based on your long years of experience with animals, do you have any ideas to which ones have a little more intelligence than others? Like, are pigs smarter than horses and horses smarter than cows?
No, not really, because even in the cows, there are some stupid cows, I tell you. But then there are also smart ones. Right now, Diane and I have 3 dogs, 2 Danes and a Newfoundland in the house. Charles has his dog, his Great Dane. That dog has taught herself to open doors. The round knobs are a little problem, but the regular handles, she's so tall, she just sticks her nose underneath the handle and either pushes or pulls the door open.
Wow.
And we never thought of that. So where does that smartness come from? I don't know. But yes, it makes no difference what animal. You have smart ones and not so smart.
In your book, you talk about how difficult it is for you as a vet to put down animals. They're not your animals, but you know how much the people cherish them. And, and you say that you always do it with absolute dignity and concern for the animal. Yes.
I work with animal control in 5 counties, and I had to teach animal control officers sometimes how to euthanize animals. And when you put a euthanasia solution in their vein when they're fully awake, you get that panic look in their face. Sure, it is an anesthetic, but for some reason or other, there's a panic look in their face that I couldn't stand. And so I developed my own way of euthanizing animals by giving them injections to give them an anesthetic first. It's a combination of tranquilizers, and it's easy. Anybody can give an animal a shot in the butt. It hurts, but that is only the minute you put it in, and then it's over. And so yes, then the animal goes completely to sleep, like for surgery, and then I use the final injection, and actually they just quit breathing mainly. And this is what I have done myself, developed that over the years.
Do you like for people, let's say they're putting a dog down that they've had for 12 years, do you like them to be there holding the dog?
That's why they get an anesthetic, because they can see the dog very quietly, just going to sleep. You can, it's not unconscious, but basically that's what it is. And while they're sleeping, completely out, then they just stop breathing. And it's, for me, that is easy to do, because the animal doesn't know what's going on, and the owner sees that the animal is not struggling. And yes, I am sorry to say, but we've had people that heard about how we're doing it that come from other clinics to have that animals put down by us, because that's how we do it.
I want to tell you about an experience I had years ago. I was at Texas A&M University in my first years of teaching. And, there's a great vet school there at Texas A&M
Very good.
in College Station. I had a cat at the time, and the cat escaped my house, and I came home, and my neighbor said, well, your cat was run over, and someone hit the cat. And, and they said, we're not sure where it is, but somebody took it. And that person came back later and said, we ran it over to the vet center at Texas A&M. And so they have the cat there, and they've done surgery. So I went over there, and they had saved her. She had broken her both legs, and they put in rods or whatever they did. I don't really remember. But I was expecting this huge vet bill, and the guy said, no, there's no bill. I used him in class. I used her in class, so you're good to go. So
that was fantastic.
Yeah. So ever since then, I've had such high regard, for your profession. And you point out in your book something I hadn't thought of, is the vet has a much broader range of responsibility than your average doctor, medical doctor.
Yeah. See, we handle everything. And so yes, we have to know a lot more about all the different breeds and different animals, but especially now when the pet is such a big component of the American family, that many people actually humanize animals.
Yeah.
And that to me is wrong. An animal has its purpose, but it still is an animal. Your dog will bark at you and your dog will bark at you and moan, and actually will tell you what he wants or does, but he cannot human talk. And yes, if you let an animal teach you what it wants, oh yes, there's a good communication. But it still is an animal. And please treat it as such, because I don't think the animal would like to be treated as a human. And this is what I say. You cannot mistreat animals. I work with animal control in 5 counties, and I've seen enough of that. I don't know why people do that, but we see it an awful lot where, they get an animal, and sometimes it's an animal just to have it there to kick around. Those people, no. Cut off their big toes. It hurts the next time. But most of the time, the animal is a big part of the family, and that's what it's supposed to be. But at the same time, it still is an animal.
Tell the story about the lady who brought in the dog that she said it wouldn't eat. You talk about it in the book. You said she brought in a dog, and she said the dog wouldn't eat. And
yes, I think that was this thing that happened when we were in school yet, and we had a professor of small animal small animal education that was very, in a way, a little bit funny. So here comes this boxer that's supposed to be weighing about 40 pounds, that weighs 90 pounds. You can't keep a collar on him because his neck is so big that it slides off his head, and the owner complains that the dog doesn't want to eat. So, then you have a couple students come up and they do a physical exam. They can't find anything wrong. So then, the lady actually is just complaining, my dog don't want to eat. And the professor finally says, well, do you think maybe the dog is not hungry? So, yes, this was one of those things where it's so obvious that, she is not taking care of the dog. Basically, she is just killing it with kindness and overfeeding it. And yes, these dogs will eat all they can. That's what they do.
Yes.
There are very few dogs that actually, if they're given the chance, will stay slim and run around. It's mainly the working dogs, many times the small collies, that will stay slim just so they can run. But most of the dogs, and I am one of them because I have a Dane that is 170 pounds.
Oh, my.
Because she's a tall dog, but she was raised on a chain, never had enough food, and when we got her, she was 11 months old and weighed under 100 pounds. She knows where the food is. We cannot keep it away from her. She knows how to open the cupboards and and she can finish a loaf of bread in 5 minutes.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Wow, 170, that's more than most people weigh.
Well, the other Danes that we have are both about 140, and they're still tall and very lean. But yes, they are big dogs.
We have an epidemic of obesity epidemic among people. Do we have a similar thing among dogs for the same reason?
Yes, we do. When I was in college, the regular diabetes, the diabetes mellitus, was almost unheard of in animals, and we had the other diabetes insipidus, which is it's a little gland above the kidney, so the paranephrosis kidneys there. No, how did you call that? Forget that. Never mind. It is another gland in the body that is not working right. But now we see an awful lot of the diabetes mellitus, which is the same diabetes that people have. And I believe it is because the way we live, sedentary, overeat, wrong foods, and not enough exercise.
And is it something in the food that we feed the dogs?
It could be, but it's just the combination of too much food and not enough exercise.
Yes. I mean, do you have a particular diet that you suggest for most dogs? Do this and not this?
Follow the directions on the bag, and do not feed many treats, and especially the smaller dogs, the dogs that you can carry around, they always want a little bit more. Do not feed them human food. If they want a treat, I tell many of my dog clients that they should have some kernels of dog food in a plastic bag in their pocket, and if the dog comes begging for something, give them a kernel of dog food. It is not how much they get and what they're getting, but it is the fact that they're getting a treat and a pat on the head that makes them happy.
Do you find that there are a lot of people who, in the relationship with their dog, do you find any cases where the dog's in charge of the relationship?
Oh, yes. Then you watch the dog whisperer. She's in Milan, and we know each other very well already because of the show. And he says, yes, he wanted to be a dog trainer, and he ended up being a human trainer. And this is what you see many times where the dog is actually too smart for the people and gets away with everything.
Yeah, there was a lady over in England about, I don't know, maybe as much as 15 years ago. She was very popular for a while, and she wrote a book called No Dumb Dogs or something like that. And that was her argument, was it's the people you have to train. Yes.
Yes. If the dog misbehaves, it's because the people do not know how to train a dog. And it's hard.
Yeah.
Because it takes time, it takes effort, and like I said, you got to be smarter than your dog.
Well, I think a lot of people get dogs and keep them in apartments that, they're just not built for apartments, and they're not built for being left alone and having no purpose.
That is a big problem, yes. And many dogs become neurotic in that way, too. The main thing is, there again, you have to train the dog, hey, go in your bed, lay down, I'll be back. And we have the 3 dogs in the house. We say the same thing. We walk out the door, you go on your bed, you lay still, we'll see you when we come back. And so far it has worked for us because we have never had a Dane that destroyed the whole house. We've had them sometimes, especially when they're young, that they chew on a pair of shoes of you or something like this, or the boredom. But most of the time our dogs have been very well behaved because we make it like everyday normal. Okay, we go into work, you go to sleep.
What is the history of Great Danes? My wife was asking me the other day where Great Danes come from, so to speak, and I said, as I recall, they're the dogs of kings.
Yes, but at the same time, the Dutch call them the Duitse dog, so it's a German dog. That's what the name is in the Netherlands. And in the olden days, when we had wild pigs in Europe, these dogs were trained to hunt the wild boars. And some of these boars can get several, 3, 4, 5, 600 pounds. And those Danes were fast, they could catch up with them, and they would grab them by an ear and jump over their back. So they would hang onto the ear, like say, they hang onto the right ear while they're on the left side of the boar, so the boar can't catch them, and at the same time the people would drum up with the spears and kill the hog. That's basically what they were used for in the very beginning. Then we got the guns, and we didn't need the dogs anymore, and then they became the regal dogs.
So then they became the dogs of kings that
yes.
stood around and looked regal.
Because it's the regal attitude.
Yes.
The Great Danes have this easygoing, how should I say that, attitude. They are not the little barky, jippy type, but at the same time, they are in need of a lot of exercise.
What do you not like to do when you go onto a farm and someone says, I need you to do this, and you say to yourself, oh, not that again? Is there anything you hate to do?
Yes, most of the time it is when a cow has been trying to have a calf, and I think that's going to be in one of the first episodes that's coming up, where a cow had been trying to have a calf for 3 days, and you got to go in there and get it out. That's when we think we should have smell-o-vision, so we get a little closer to the people in the living room. Yes.
That's that often when you can't get the calf out, you have to cut it, right?
Yes. Yeah, and back in the Netherlands, we were taught how to use this instrument called a feedotome, which actually is a tube with a wire running through it that you can cut parts off the calf inside the cow without hurting the cow. And yes, I have one in every car that we use here, and when you have to use it, you say, oh my gosh, here we go again, because it is work, it is smelly, but at the end you get everything out, it is still satisfying. You save the cow's life.
You work with the Amish, right?
We have very many Amish in our clientele, yes.
Something that confuses me, the Amish are generally against technology, right?
No, they want to be self-sufficient. They don't believe in using, how should I say that, people that are, yes, they have to buy diesel fuel, but they don't want to use electricity unless they make it themselves.
Okay.
They don't want to use the phone because they don't believe in those things. And yes, it is there are in the Amish are very many different groups and different ways of interpreting their beliefs.
Well, my curiosity would be if they have a general reluctance to use technology, then why would they use, say, antibiotics?
Because they still want to use their animals, or they want to use drugs to keep their animals healthy. for them, a horse has to work. A cow has to give milk. And if a cow is sick, if it has pneumonia, it needs antibiotics, and it can get better. So there is no need for them not to use antibiotics. They use doctors too.
Yes.
So yes, they use medicine for themselves and the families. So they also use it in the barn.
But that's interesting. So from your experience with them, it's about self-sufficiency. That's
self-sufficiency. That's the main thing. Yes. They have their own garden. They have their own animals, and they supply their own meat. They can everything. Yes, they try to do as much themselves as they can.
They also they don't borrow money, right? They don't borrow money from banks.
I don't think so, because they don't take insurance from the regular insurance companies either. They use internal insurance, so that anything happens, the call goes out to all the Amish in the United States and Canada. The so-and-so happened, and many times everything is just, and how they have that, I have no idea, but somebody keeping track of it, that at the end of the year, the call goes out to all these Amish communities that, okay, we need so much money per family, so here we help. That's how they help each other out. I wish I was part of that insurance. It would be a lot cheaper.
I had a friend that worked with the Amish, and he told me that one of the reasons they had such huge tracts of land is that they didn't buy anything on credit. They paid cash all the time, and so they had
true.
cash.
Yes. Self-sufficient there again.
Yeah, it's very impressive.
Yeah, the strange thing is that Amish move a lot more than anybody else. And we have had Amish clients that moved to Montana. They moved to Pennsylvania, back where they are. They moved to Iowa, Texas, and further places. But they remember my phone number. And I still get calls from Amish that have gone for several years, and many of the names are similar. So the Amish call and says, "You remember me?" Yeah, keep talking, And so they will call me about something with the animals, and do we need to call a vet? What can I do? And I still try to help them.
Sure, I'm sure you do.
Yeah. Yes.
One last question. In your book, you tell a story about a friend of yours who was working with a cow at an Amish farm, and the cow fell on him and hyperextended his knee. And he needed help.
That was Dr. Kurt.
Yes, that's a good story. Can you tell that?
Yeah. Well, Dr. Kurt actually there was a cow that had a twisted stomach, so they had to roll the cow, and there was not enough help. And when the cow falls down, he falls against Kurt's leg and actually dislocates his kneecap. And Dr. Kurt was trying to tell him how to use the two-way radio we had in the cars, but they couldn't grasp it. And finally, one way or the other, they got together, and that's how help came along.
It's a great story. Boy, that must have hurt, though. Your description of that.
He said it hurt, yes.
Oof, man, that hurt.
Yes.
Your new series has how many episodes?
There are 10 new episodes again, starting this Saturday at 9 o'clock Eastern Time. And yes, I think the first episode has something to do with the full moon again.
Well, I thank you for joining us today, and I thank your son for being smart enough to get you on. I've seen only a couple of your shows, but I found them delightful. Thank you, Bill. I found them insightful and fun and authentic, so I hope you will do this as long as you can. Thank you, Bill. We'll try. The book, again, is Never Turn Your Back on an Angus Cow. What a great title. I loved it. It has a great number of wonderful stories about working with large animals and small, all things big and small. He has a big heart, as you can tell, for making sure that animals have a good life. I ask you to pick it up and enjoy it as I have. I'm Dr. W.F. Strong for Good Books Radio. Have a good day.